Long ago, Rabbit was a great hunter. He lived with his grandmother in a lodge which stood deep in the Micmac forest. It was winter, and Rabbit set traps and laid snares to catch game for food. He caught many small animals and birds until one day he discovered that some mysterious being was robbing his traps. Rabbit and his grandmother got hungry. Though he visited his traps every day early each morning, he always found them empty. At first, Rabbit thought the robber might be a cunning wolf, until one morning he found long, narrow footprints all along his trap line. It was, he thought, the tracks of the robber, but they looked to be moonbeams. Each morning Rabbit rose earlier and earlier, but the being of Longfoot was always ahead of him, and always his traps were empty. Rabbit made a trap from a bowstring with the loop so cleverly fastened he felt certain that it would catch whoever was stealing his food. He took one end of the thong with him and laid himself a clump of bushes that he could hide in and watch his snare. It was bright moonlight while he waited, but suddenly it became very dark in the forest, and the moon disappeared. A few of the stars were still shining, and there were no clouds in the sky, so Rabbit wondered what did happen to the moon. Someone or something came stealthily through the trees, and Rabbit was almost blinded by a flash of bright white light which went straight to the trap line and shone through the snare that he had set. Quick as a lightning flash, Rabbit jerked the bowstring up and tightened the noose. There was a sound of struggling, the light lurched from side to side, and Rabbit knew the tugging on his string that he had caught the robber. He fastened the bowstring to a nearby sapling to hold the loop tight. Pretty smart little rabbit, if you ask me. Rabbit raced back to tell his grandmother, who was a wise old woman, what had happened. She told him he should probably get back over there and figure out what he just caught. Rabbit, who was very frightened, wanted to wait for daylight, but his grandmother said that might be too late, so he returned. When he came near his traps, Rabbit saw the bright light was still there. It was so bright that it hurt his eyes. He bathed them in icy water of a nearby brook, but they still smarted. He made a big snowball and threw him at the light, in hopes of putting it out. As they got close to the light, he heard them sizzle and saw them melt. Next, Rabbit scooped up great potfuls of soft clay from the stream and made a bunch of balls out of it. He was a good shot and threw the balls with all his force at the dancing white light. He heard them strike hard, and his prisoner shouted, "Ah, ah, ah." Then a strange quivering voice asked why he had been snared and demanded that he be set free at once, because he was the man in the moon and must be set free before dawn came. His face had been spotted with clay, and when Rabbit got closer, the moon saw him and threatened to kill him and all his tribe if he was not released at once. Not a very good move, if you ask me. He was so terrified that he raced back to tell his grandmother about his strange captive. She was too much afraid and told Rabbit to return and release him immediately. Rabbit went back, and his voice shook with fear as he told the man in the moon that he'd release him, but he better not rob his snares again, or he's going to do it again. To make doubly sure, Rabbit made him promise he would never return to Earth, and the Moon Man swore he would never do so. Rabbit could hardly see in the dazzling light, but at least he managed to gnaw through the bowstring with his teeth, and the man in the moon disappeared in the sky, leaving a bright trail of light behind him. Rabbit had nearly been blinded by the great light, and his shoulders were badly scorched. Even today, rabbits blink as though light is too strong for their eyes. Their eyelids are pink, and their eyes water as if they're looking at a bright light. And, of course, they always shake and their lips quiver because of Rabbit's terror.